It was a cold winter's night when Tristan arrived home. He had stayed late at work for an important board meeting and was exhausted when he finally got to his house that evening. But before he could change and have his evening meal, his doorbell rang. Who could this be to arrive at the door this late, he thought. Tristan had few friends, and what family he had he barely saw. Marriages and funerals, that's when they would all meet, and within minutes they would argue, and then perhaps they would fight. Tristan had little time for family, but honestly, he had little time for anyone. He flung open the door in his annoyance and half shouted, "What do you want calling at this hour? This had better be good." A young lady stood there, with a book in her hand, and said with a smile, "What I have is most certainly good, because I bring you news of Jesus, light and Saviour of the world." Before the woman could say another word, Tristan flew into a rage. "Where can I find a place where I should no longer hear that name, where no annoying Christian will ever disturb my peace, and where I no longer must bear this silly foolishness? Have you not heard that God is dead?" "What evidence, girl?" he shouted. "Tell me what evidence there is for this deity of yours." Before the woman could open her mouth to reply, Tristan had already slammed the door shut. He charged upstairs to change for bed, swearing as he went, "I wish I could find a place where God is never mentioned," he cried. He then slumped into his bed and fell asleep. But that night a messenger came to Tristan. The vision that he saw was so vivid that even in his later years he would remember it as clear as day. His clothes, hair and beard were white as snow, and he glowed as though there were pure light within him radiating through his skin. "Hello, Tristan," the man said. "Who are you?" Tristan asked, "and how do you know my name, and why have you come to me?" "So many questions," the man sighed, "but I am permitted only to answer one of them. I have come to answer your prayer." "Prayer?" Tristan half laughed. "I can assure you that I have never prayed even once in my entire life." "Oh, but you have, Tristan," the man replied. "Do you not realize that God sees the innermost desires of your heart, and that you tonight have prayed to go to a place where His name is never mentioned? I have come to take you there." Tristan began to worry and vocalized his fear. "Have you come to take me to hell, messenger of God?" he asked. "No." This time the messenger half laughed. "I have not come to take you there, but some other place, another planet, much like this world, but in another universe where God's name is never mentioned. Will you come with me? I promise I'll bring you back immediately if you so wish." Tristan smiled then. To see a world where there is no religion to divide, no holy wars, no God to condemn, and no annoying Christians to pester me, of course I will come with you. In an instant a bright shining light appeared, so great that it engulfed the both of them, and blinded Tristan's eyes for some time. But when his sight returned, he opened his eyes, and in his surprise he was in a city almost completely identical to the one that he had come from. There were roads and cars and houses and office blocks, all the things they had left behind. The messenger of God was there too. "Explore the city," he said, "where God's name is never mentioned. I will stand beside you and answer any of your questions. No one but you will see me, and when you are ready to go home, tell me, and I'll take you back." "I'm not sure that I will want to go back," Tristan said. "I feel at home in this place. Look, the streets are so much cleaner than back home." Tristan wandered down the street laughing, then singing John Lennon's hit song, Imagine. He sang, then he laughed again. He met lots of people in the street, dressed in beautiful clothing, and many with bonny-looking babies. pushed along in beautifully ornate prams. It was like a Sunday afternoon in London, but without the churches and church bells and people handing out silly pamphlets telling people about a dead God. Tristan was truly happy. He said to the messenger, "Who needs God? Do these people need God? It doesn't look like it to me." The messenger never said a word in reply, but walked along beside him as though he were waiting for something to happen. That worried Tristan slightly, but he wasn't going to let it destroy his good mood. After about half an hour of gloating, Tristan saw a man dash out of an alleyway, pursued by what looked like 6 policemen. The man was unarmed. Indeed, even though it was a cold winter's day, the man barely wore anything at all. His clothes were all tattered and torn and dirty. But to Tristan's complete surprise, the policemen drew their arms and fired. They didn't fire to immobilize the man. They shot to kill. The man died instantly, and as he lay on the ground, blood pouring from his lifeless body, Tristan stood transfixed, shocked to the core by what he had just seen. "What did he do?" Tristan asked one of the policemen as he approached. "He was an undesirable," the policeman explained. "Had done no work for a year and had used up all of his resources. He was no good to society, and the community tribunal decided last week that his body should be eliminated and that his weak gene pool should be destroyed." "Gene pool?" Tristan inquired. "Family, you idiot, family! Now get out of our way and let us get on with our jobs. You're holding us back. We haven't even had time to get to his house yet, and there are 9 other bodies on our list to eliminate." Tristan was truly appalled by what he had just heard, but he was too frightened to say anything while the police were there. He waited until the men left and then asked the messenger of God about what had just happened. "The society on this planet works on the principle of cooperation for mutual benefit," the messenger of God explained. "The man who you saw killed had no marketable resources to trade, neither in terms of intelligence nor in terms of manual expertise. He had sunk lower and lower through the social ranks until there was nothing for him to do. If he had been allowed to remain in society, he would have been a drain on their resources, a parasite, if you will. Charity doesn't exist in this world, and he would almost certainly have become a thief or some other criminal, and since there's no place to exile him to, there's only one option, and that is to kill him." "But why isn't there any welfare here?" Tristan asked. "In this world without God, without any higher considerations, what makes sense in evolutionary terms will exist," the messenger of God said, "and that which doesn't make evolutionary sense will not exist." A book that Tristan recognized then appeared in the messenger of God's hands. It had been written by one of Tristan's favorite scientists, one he admired greatly because he opposed belief in God with a vengeance. The messenger of God began to quote from it. "Much as we might wish to believe otherwise, universal love and the welfare of the species as a whole are concepts that simply do not make evolutionary sense." Tristan quickly interrupted. He knew where this was going. "I never read that to mean that evolution doesn't allow for compassion," he exclaimed. The messenger of God began to quote again from Tristan's book. "To a survival machine," that's what he calls human beings, isn't it? "To a survival machine, another survival machine, which is not of his own child or another close relative, is part of its environment, like a rock, or a river, or a lump of food. It's something that gets in the way, or something that can be exploited." The messenger of God stopped quoting. "Why do you speak of compassion, Tristan? Who taught you that word? Did you learn it from nature, from which the scientist you admire tells you are derived, and that no other force is at work? Do you find selfless charity in nature, red in tooth and claw, nature where survival of the fittest is the predominant principle. Tristan was profoundly disturbed by what he had seen and heard. Surely there must be more to life than just being a survival machine. Some higher influence must surely exist that contains within it the basis for true self-sacrificing compassion. But Tristan couldn't think what that might be. If people are of no benefit to society, then why should society support them? If they are too weak or stupid to contribute, then why would a group of biological survival machines not find ways of removing them? Tristan was suddenly interested to learn about the philosophy of these people who lived in a world where God's name is never mentioned.